Hi again, everyone. My name is Jessica, and this week I did my reading on chapter 13 from the book Pornographic Eroticism and Sexual Grotesque in Representations of African American Sportswomen. And basically, what the article was talking about is how sexism and racism specifically are still very present in sports, in female sports today, especially. And it even mentions, it parallels Althea Gibson, who was a tennis player 50, 60 years ago, and how Serena Williams today is still going through comparable experiences. So, the first term that is related to the story is pornographic eroticism. And in women's sports, there's like much more so than men's sports. There's a lot of focus placed on their appearance rather than their talents or their achievements or even the match or game that they could be playing in, like currently. Their bodies, their hair, their outfits, even their personal lives are often critiqued on sports shows and even, like I said, live during their sporting event. Although it happens to every female athlete pretty much, person who's been targeted the most is Serena Williams. She's been put at the same class as Maria Sharapova oftentimes, but when they're talked about in the media, you can tell they're talked about very drastically different. Um, Williams has been a lot more criticized for everything she does from the beginning of her career and still till now, for her hair, her the outfits she wears during her matches, her body type especially. And Sharapova in those same areas has not been criticized. In fact, has been praised almost in those same areas. Another term that relates to this article was grotesquerie, which is pretty much the same as I mentioned before about how their bodies have just been overly sexualized by the media. And Venus, but particularly Serena, have been a victim of this a lot of the time. And even though, like, the most innocent of outfits, you may think, especially when they were younger and first coming into tennis, the most innocent of outfits or the most innocent of actions was pretty much deemed inappropriate from the beginning. And they analyze the way that their actions are analyzed. It turns from their plays or their achievements or their endorsements, any of the positive things that they're doing. It turns from that to pretty much analyzing their bodies, and their breasts and their butt is brought up a lot. A lot of emphasis is placed on them being a model for black women specifically, and it's a very good example of how black women in general are viewed as not up to the body type standards really. Um, the last term that was found in this article was the ghetto to glory narrative. The media has made a very big deal about where the Williams sisters come from and their background, especially in the beginning of their career. They are from Compton, California, and they do come from a rougher neighborhood into a sport that is dominated by white males in country clubs and typically rich environments like that. Um, the most obvious point made was that they were young black women in like I said, heavily white male dominated sport, and became as good as they were, not going to the same like expensive tennis schools and not having the same coaches or playing in like country club courts, things like that. So they did start out with a significant disadvantage and still were able to become the most dominant women in tennis, definitely today. Their background is emphasized way more than any other tennis players, male or female. And whenever they're mentioned in like when their supposed greatness is coming into play, they're always compared to other white male athletes, as if to say that they can only be validated against like a male standard of greatness, or they can't even stand on their own in their own greatness. Um, they A term that was used in the article that I really thought um, summed it up perfectly was that they're made to look like ghetto Cinderellas, and the media doesn't seem to want to let them forget where they come from, which could be a good thing, but it also could be a very negative thing. As far as agreement goes, I completely agree with all the points made in the article. It was very spot on, I thought. As someone, I follow sports and I aspire to be in sports broadcasting myself one day. I've more than noticed the patterns that present themselves when it comes to women in sports. Much of the time, both female athletes and female media members are objectified the same way that you see the Williams sisters objectified, but it's not often to the same degree. The Williams sisters, especially Serena, really get a hard go through a lot with that and have a hard time with that. I do like how the author mentioned their how they respond positively to the public criticisms, and they usually like joke it, are very joke, you know what I mean, usually joke in their responses and kind of brush it off and don't really draw much attention to it. Um, and one of my media examples that I'll post below is a perfect example of how Serena responded to the negative criticisms um, made towards her over Maria Sharapova's recent drug um, admittance. She was using performance enhancing drugs. And Serena Williams, of course, got dragged into that situation also, but you can see that in the video that I posted below. Um, but I do like how the authors also mentioned how they are working towards forming a new social identities for like Black women specifically. And I also like the statement that followed that, that said they're possibly cultivating a Black feminist aesthetic that recognizes the Black female body as beautiful and desirable in its distinction from stereotypes of white beauty. So I really like that sentence. It really stood out to me. Another good point was made about how whites also have to do their part by deconstructing their normative white perspective. There's nothing really I disagreed with in this article. Pretty much everything I agreed with. I'd say we're not there yet as far as cultivating the new Black female aesthetic, but we are well on our way, and I do like how they're pointing that out. And like I said, I do have two media examples. One is Maria Sharapova admitting to using PEDs, and how Serena was asked about it, reacted to it. And another one is of Jamel Hill of ESPN's His and Hers, when she did a segment talking about how racism and sexism plays out in sports, and specifically how it relates to Serena Williams. So I hope you enjoy, and thank you.